17 flies land on my left hand while I count to 60. Their legs leave tracks in the film of grease that's become my second skin here in the flooded trenches carved from the hive city's southern approach. Each follows a different path across my knuckles, but they all cluster around the infected cut between my thumb and forefinger. The wound appeared after I helped drag Trooper Garland from the razor wire 3 days ago. His flesh had already begun the change, splitting like overripe fruit, and something in those fluids found its way into a small shrapnel cut. Now infection spreads under my skin in fractal patterns. The regimental chronometer stopped yesterday when a phosphor shell cracked its housing, letting in air that corroded its sacred mechanisms within hours. The tech priests would call it heresy, this death of a machine spirit, but they're all dead now. Their augmetics no protection against plague that recognizes no distinction between flesh and blessed metal. We measure time by artillery patterns now, by the stages of decomposition in bodies we can't retrieve without losing more men to sniper fire. My boots rotted through during this morning's chemical rain. The drops hissed against rockcrete, eating through flak armor with the patience of acid. The Munitorum issue boots, supposedly rated for 6 months of combat operations, lasted exactly 11 days in this toxic soup. Now I wrap my feet in strips of plastic torn from ration packaging, the silver material already browning where contaminated groundwater seeps through. Each step makes a wet, sucking sound that reminds me of marching through the training grounds, except this moisture is warm with decay. Behind me, Corporal Hadrek fights another coughing fit. Wet, productive, bringing up phlegm in colors that shouldn't exist inside human lungs. Yesterday it was green. Today purple threads weave through it like veins of corrupt ore. He keeps smoking his low sticks anyway, says the burn in his throat masks the other burning, the one that started when we walked through that yellow fog on day 7. The latrine pit has become something else now. Things move down there that violate the natural order, hybrid creatures born from human waste and plague corruption. Yesterday something with too many eyes and a mouth where no mouth should be tried crawling out. Vect put 3 Lars bolts into it before it dropped back down. Bors sits near me, humming the same 3 notes from Emperor's Eagle's March Eternal on infinite repeat. B-flat, F then G, over and over. A fragment of sanctified melody that survived while the rest of the hymn has rotted away like everything else here. To my left, Nevin works his combat knife across rockcrete in long strokes. The blade's already sharper than need to be, but the ritual continues. Between strokes, he writes in a journal smaller than his palm, using script so tiny it would require an auspex to read properly. Everything, he told me once when I asked what he was documenting. Every death, every small act of courage or cowardice. Someone needs to know we didn't just disappear into the mud. Morning quiet breaks with the distinctive gurgle of plague mortars. Not the clean scream of conventional shells, but wet sounds like giant throats clearing phlegm. They don't explode. They burst, spreading spore clouds that paint the air yellow-green. My rebreather is down to its last filter cartridge. Each breath tastes of sweet corruption, despite the prayer seals blessed by Chaplain Mortis before he transformed on day 8. We found him in the chapel tent, kneeling in perfect prayer posture, even as fungal growths burst from his eye sockets, still reciting the litany of faith through lips that had fused into something like tree bark. Through my firing slit, I watched them emerge from the morning mist. The moaning starts as vibration in your chest before becoming sound. 1,000 rotting throats producing something between screams and laughter. Pox walkers, the walking dead of Nurgle's blessing, shambling through fog in waves that never end because every death adds to their number. The Tactica Imperium speaks of breaking enemy morale through superior firepower, but these have no morale to break, no fear to exploit, only the endless hunger to spread grandfather's gifts. Some are fresh, maybe a day dead, still moving with hints of human locomotion. Others have walked for weeks, bodies so degraded that movement itself becomes blasphemy against physics. My finger finds its rhythm on the trigger. Squeeze, release, track to next target. The power pack depletes steadily. 60 shots per pack, according to specifications. But you count to 55 because the last 5 often lose effectiveness. the sacred power cells corrupted by atmospheric taint. 3 packs left for today's allocation. Standard ammunition discipline, 165 shots before I'm reduced to bayonet work. A fresher corpse stumbles into view. A PDF conscript with infection maybe 4 days along. His flak armor bears the markings of the Hive Defense Auxiliary, the aquila on his chest plate already tarnishing green. Black veins web across exposed skin, pulsing with their own rhythm like secondary hearts. He probably had family in the upper manufactorum, probably kissed his children goodbye when the emergency mobilization came through the Vox networks. The shot takes his knee apart with surgical precision. He falls face first into contaminated water that immediately clouds with yellow discharge. 3 more walkers trip over his thrashing form. Economy of ammunition achieved. Behind me, Hadrek calls for ceasefire. Let them bunch at the wire. Standard engagement protocol. The walkers lack coordination to navigate our razor wire, 40 meters out, in 9 overlapping layers. The walkers press forward until they create walls of flesh, perfect targets for concentrated fire if we still had anything heavier than standard Lars charges. During the lull, word filters through our communication trench. The runner is barely 15, conscripted from a Scholam when the PDF ran out of adults. His eyes already carry the 1,000-meter stare. Command has prisoners. Early stage infected PDF caught attempting desertion. They need guards for what they call interrogation, but what everyone knows is watching them transform while pretending to gather intelligence. The holding dugout sits 30 meters behind our main line, carved from compressed earth that continuously weeps contaminated water. 3 men inside, wrists bound with regulation restraint wire that cuts through skin gone soft with infection. Through the earthen walls, I hear one speaking in the flat affect of neurological involvement. She had my eyes, brown like recaf with little gold flecks when the sunlight hit them right. Made her breakfast every shift cycle, real eggs on a named day, not just corpse starch. 6 years old next month, probably wondering why I haven't come home, or she's dead. Maybe she's walking. The second prisoner laughs with genuine euphoria, brain chemistry rewritten to interpret rot as rapture. Walking is better, brother. She gets to see the garden growing from inside, feel the grandfather's love in every cell. You'll understand soon when the pain stops and everything becomes joy. 8 hours into my watch, their skin shows the characteristic mottling of advancement. Purple-green patches spread from extremities like spilled ink through wet parchment. The first prisoner stops speaking of his daughter, only repeats grid coordinates in an endless loop. I transcribe them into my field notes because orders require it, though the notebook is already full of similar intelligence that leads nowhere. Commissar Declan arrives at precisely 1100 hours. She's maintained this schedule for 7 days, the only order she can impose on chaos. Her bolt pistol bears 43 Mercy marks scratched into its grip. The safety disengages with metallic certainty. My daughter needs to know. The first prisoner's words are cut short by the bolt that removes his head in a spray of corrupt matter. The third opens his eyes at the last moment and says simply, "Thank you, throne bless you, thank you." We drag the remains to the pyre that burns continuously behind our lines, fed with promethium we can't spare. The bodies pop and hiss in the flames, releasing sweet smoke that makes empty stomachs remember hunger. Preacher Kellen approaches while I feed corpses into the flames. His aquila has turned black from smoke exposure, the imperial eagle transformed into something that looks more like a carrion bird. "You're favoring your left leg, trooper." Twisted it during morning patrol. Minor injury, nothing that affects combat readiness. His eyes have yellowed, whether from exhaustion or infection remains unclear. We both know what a limp might mean. We both know I'm lying. We both know it doesn't matter. He produces a bottle of Amasic from beneath his cassock, pre-war officer's stock with a label too faded to read. "For the pain," he says, though we both know alcohol can't touch plague symptoms. We drink in his dugout chapel, little more than a carved hole reinforced with ammunition crates. He's painted scenes on the dirt walls using ash and blood. Saint Sabbat holds her sword but weeps black tears. The Emperor sits on the golden throne, but in Kellen's interpretation, the throne looks more like a prison, and the Emperor more corpse than God. 837 final blessings since deployment, he tells me after the third pull from the bottle. Used to know every name, every story. Now they all look the same at the end. Grey-green skin and clouded eyes. That terrible smile when the plague convinces them dying is ascending to something greater. Day 15 brings orders from Sector Command through channels so corrupted we can barely understand them. Assault the Manufactorum complex 900 meters north. Take the elevated positions. The fact that we've watched 2 regiments fail this exact mission doesn't factor into Command's calculations. At 0400 hours, we fix bayonets. Lieutenant Harkin, his augmetic eye glowing red after a Lars burn took his original, writes Emperor protects on his data slate since his throat was destroyed by gas exposure. We all know it's a lie we tell ourselves, but lies are all we have left. The whistle blows. We go over the top into hell made manifest. The ground isn't earth anymore, but a carpet of corpses in various stages of decomposition. My boots don't touch actual soil for 50 meters, each step calculated to avoid slipping on organs or tripping over limbs that sometimes still grasp at passing ankles. Ahead, the first wave is already dying. Trooper Vaughn takes 3 rounds to the chest, spinning like a dancer before falling. By the time I pass his position, the infected ammunition has already spread corruption through his system. He's starting to stand again, movements erratic as plague spirits learn to work his muscles. Phosphor shells burst overhead, raining chemical fire that burns through armor. A trooper from 2nd Squad becomes a human torch, his ammunition cooking off in his pouches. He runs toward enemy lines, whether from panic or some final act of defiance I do not know. He explodes against the wire obstacles, creating a gap we exploit. I dive into a shell crater occupied by 2 dying Mordians, their dress uniforms ruined by reality. One speaks through blood bubbles. The basement. Don't go in the basement. Hundreds of them. The Manufactorum looms through smoke, a skeleton of twisted metal where industry once thrived. Now it produces only death from stubgun positions dug into every floor. We take cover in a destroyed Chimera transport. We hold position for 16 hours. Water runs out at hour 6. By hour 8, we're filtering urine through purification tablets. The tablets make it safe, but can't remove the taste of ammonia and shame. Hadrek tries to joke about vintage years, but our throats are too raw from gas exposure to laugh. The retreat order finally comes. Of 40 men who advanced, 11 return. Hadrek isn't among them. During hour 15, he stood to throw a grenade at flanking enemies. The stubgun round removed his head so cleanly his body remained standing for 2 seconds, arms still cocked to throw. The grenade rolled from dead fingers, detonating close enough to pepper my left side with shrapnel I'll be picking out for days. I inherit his chronometer, though it runs backward now, counting down to some unknown 0 hour. I also inherit acting corporal rank, which means making decisions that will kill the men who trust me. The infection in my leg, black veins branching beneath skin that's taken on the texture of old leather. The wound weeps constantly despite counterseptic powder that might as well be sugar for all the good it does. Day 18 brings catastrophe that redefines our understanding of the war. The lower hive breaches in 17 locations simultaneously, coordinated demolitions that suggest intelligence behind the destruction. Millions of refugees pour from the wounds in the city's flesh, fleeing something worse than death. They flow toward both imperial and traitor lines without discrimination, a tide of humanity in various stages of plague and panic. Standing orders are brutally simple. No one passes the perimeter. No exceptions for age, medical status, or intelligence value. We know what one infected person inside our lines could do, even though we're all already infected to various degrees. Command needs us functional until we're not, and refugees accelerate that timeline from weeks to hours. My squad draws heavy bolter duty, overlooking what used to be the main transit highway. Its machine spirit is temperamental, every 10th round failing to fire. The first wave arrives at dawn, families mostly, parents carrying children, elderly supporting each other in final acts of human kindness. They see our positions and accelerate, hope making them run toward the guns meant to kill them. They beg as they approach, voices carrying across the killing ground with terrible clarity. The heavy bolter speaks its own language, translating all pleas into silence. Bodies explode into component parts, the massive rounds designed for vehicle armor making human flesh seem insubstantial. I focus on the mechanism of engagement. Traverse, squeeze, 3-second burst, traverse, repeat. The barrel glows cherry red after 20 minutes, requiring cooling with urine when our water runs out. 6 hours in, a child makes it through. 8 years old, wearing a Scholam uniform that's impossibly clean. She approaches with the purposeful walk of someone with an important message. "My grandfather said to give this to the soldiers," she says, holding out a stuffed Grox toy. The toy opens its mouth independently, revealing rows of needle teeth that shouldn't exist in fabric. Its tongue tastes the air while the girl's smile begins to split her face along hidden seams. I don't hesitate. The Lars bolt burns through the toy, bursting it on impact, releasing plague flies that we all breathe before we can react. They taste of copper and corruption. Our infection timeline just compressed dramatically. Nevin's eyes already show burst vessels as he says, "Well, that's that then." The next day brings revelation. Colonel Mortons has been dead for over a week, his body animated by maggots. His voice has been coming from something living in his chest cavity. The discovery triggers immediate violence as we realize half of command has been replaced by pretenders, issuing orders designed to fail, sending units into ambushes, depleting ammunition on phantoms. Loyalists against corrupted, and you can't tell which is which until someone tries to kill you. I shoot Sergeant Krasick, a man I've known for 3 years, who saved my life more than once, who taught me everything about survival. He tried to inject me with green liquid inside a syringe. His last words are about grandfather's love, about the peace that waits past human. I pull the trigger anyway because that's what loyalty means now. In the chaos, I gather what's left of my squad. Nevin, 2 troopers named Deck, and Marsh who have stopped speaking but still fight with loyal desperation. And somehow Preacher Kellen appears carrying his Aquila like a weapon. We secure the ammunition depot through close-quarters violence, the kind where you smell your enemy's last meal as your knife finds their throat. During a lull, Nevin shows me his journal, wrapped in layers of plastic, sealed with melted ration wax, every page covered in microscopic documentation of our dissolution. "Someone needs to know," he says, pressing it into my hands with fever-bright eyes. Not the official version, not the propaganda. The truth about how we held a line that stopped existing weeks ago. The loyalist faction wins through attrition. 200 guardsmen remain from 3,000, compressed into a perimeter that shrinks daily. From our position, I watch traitor PDF patrol our abandoned trenches without urgency. They're waiting for biology to win their war. Day 22 arrives with morning mist that tastes foul. My infection has reached my chest cavity, each breath slightly shallower than the last as lung tissue converts to something else. Through my field glasses, cracked and barely focusing, I spot movement in no man's land that doesn't match the shambling gait of walkers. Someone crawls with tactical purpose, using cover, approaching our lines with intelligence no pox walker possesses. Against every instinct, I don't fire. The figure reaches our trench, wearing a makeshift hazmat suit cobbled from industrial equipment. When the mask comes off, it reveals Lieutenant Mora, former 302nd PDF intelligence, face scarred by promethium burns, one eye an empty socket. "I've been surviving in water treatment plant 7. The deep filters still work if you know which chemicals to add. I have authentication codes for orbital assets. There's a frigate in high orbit. If we reach the primary Vox Tower, we can call for extraction." I don't trust her, but trust has become irrelevant. A mission beats waiting for transformation. I gather volunteers, all showing late-stage infection, all with hours or days remaining. Preacher Kellen insists on joining despite showing no symptoms, which answers questions about deals made in darkness. I have one sermon left in me, he says, checking his monoknife. Want to deliver it somewhere that matters. We move at dawn through trenches that have become archaeology, every meter telling stories through debris. The Voxtower base holds hundreds of poxwalkers in perfect formation, still maintaining the discipline that survived their deaths. They part like water as we approach, creating a corridor through their ranks. Preacher Kellen breaks their programming with words about choice, about dying as yourself rather than living as something else. We are not victims, not martyrs, not heroes. We are men and women who choose to die standing. That choice, small and ultimately meaningless, is what makes us human. Not flesh that rots, not souls that might not exist, but choices we make until we can't make them anymore. The dead follow us up the tower, a congregation of the damned climbing stairs that groan under weight they weren't designed to support. Some leave pieces behind with each step, fingers, toes, things that were probably organs once. At the apex, I input Mora's codes with fingers that barely respond. Static resolves into a cultured voice, completely without sympathy. Your situation has been monitored, valuable data collected. Orbital bombardment commences in 30 minutes. The Emperor protects. The Vox dies. Mora laughs bitterly. I made a deal with the Inquisition 3 weeks ago. Document the plague from inside. They promised extraction. Should have known the Inquisition doesn't retrieve assets, only information. Nevin shoots her without hesitation, his last charge converting her head into a superheated mist. No one else chooses our deaths. We sit on the observation platform as the sun rises through pollution that paints everything the color of old blood. Below sprawls 10 million corpses that were citizens last month. From this height, I can see our original trenches, tiny scratches that consumed 3,000 guardsmen for objectives that no longer exist. I read Nevin's final entry, written in a shaking hand about a girl who laughed at his worst jokes, who made tea that tasted like home. The infection reaches my brain as orbital bombardment begins. I check my last pistol, one charge saved for this moment. Around me, survivors make the same calculation. Preacher Kellen stands at the platform's edge, humming a Cadian battle hymn, The Waters of Tyrock, 5 notes that should speak of victory but sound like a dirge. We join in, still human enough to sing. The sky turns orange as Lance strikes spear down from orbit, each impact vaporizing city blocks, converting matter to energy with perfect efficiency. The tower shakes as support structures systematically fail. Below, 10,000 poxwalkers raise their arms toward the falling fire like congregants receiving a final blessing. My finger finds the trigger. The corruption whispers I could wait, stop fighting and rest. But that's not how guardsmen die. We die holding lines even when they're imaginary. I held the line. Nevin held it until his brain forgot words. Hadrek until precision shooting removed his head. Borse until his skin fell away. 43 pages worth of guardsmen held the line until biology or bullets ended their watch. The tower collapses as the energy wave approaches. Through the floor, I see walkers still at attention as the lance strike hits them directly. Kellen steps off the edge without ceremony. Marsh jumps. Deck puts his knife through his throat. In the fraction between trigger pull and annihilation, I see every impossible order followed, every small heroism and necessary cruelty that brought us here. We were never going to win, never meant to survive. Just hold until someone decided we'd held enough. It has to mean something, even if meaning is just the echo of choice made when all choices led to death. The line was always imaginary, drawn in mud and blood and the spaces between heartbeats. But we held it anyway, because that's what guardsmen do. We hold the line until we can't, and then we hold it a little longer, because the alternative is letting the darkness win without a fight. The Emperor protects, but sometimes his protection is just giving you the strength to die on your feet instead of your knees.